You guys won the Grand Slam this year, which is like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Ventus Black was in a specific shaft too, which is crazy. Um,
It's crazy that it's not only, a company that wins a Grand Slam, but also, Ventus Black, the model.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
special.
All right, fully equipped, episode 297 uh, on the golf.com fully equipped golf channel family of 8 a.m. juggernaut mothership things that we do here in the golf industry. So we have a big announcement to make this week. If you guys follow on Instagram, we made an announcement. We have a new hire, uh, Mr. Jake Morrow of Made for the Range fame. Jake, introduce yourself to the crew. For anybody that doesn't know who you are, I'm sure the whole world knows who you are, but tell everybody in the class who you are, Jake, and what do you do? What do you do?
Yes. Well, as of 24 hours ago, I work for Johnny and fully equipped. But no, so the last 2 years, I ran a content platform called Made for the Range that focused on gear equipment education, is what I call it. So just trying to get people to be able to buy better golf clubs through their own research, for the sake of uh, better scores on the golf course. Essentially, I think that it's really empowering for people to be able to feel like they can go in, purchase a golf club, and walk out with something that they're confident in playing, and that they can like brag about and show off to their buddies, and they can brag about the fact that they learned everything on their own and go out and do it, and then eventually, we should all step into fitting bays and get the real nerdiness of it down. But yeah, so the last 2 years I've just been grinding away, focusing on educating people on their golf clubs and how they work. And now we're here, and I'm just incredibly, incredibly pumped about it.
Well, we're pumped too. So for the folks out there, when I took this job with golf.com, one of the things I was adamant about was being able to build my own team and build a team that I felt like it could really kind of level up the gear strategy and how gear is presented to the masses. And Jake is somebody I've been following for quite a while. And, I feel like as far as somebody that speaks to the consumer, which is the you people, anyone who listens to this fully equipped podcast, I speak a lot to the gearhead, tour junkie type situations where Jake is just masterclass at speaking to the consumer at a very high level, but also digestible level. And I think he's better at it than I am. So, in this case, part of being a good manager or director of a platform is finding people that are going to make you look really good. So I'm excited for Jake to be here because it's going to take this platform to the next level. And for you people out there that are really wanting to know and understand how you particularly buy a golf club, Jake is your guy. So he's going to be our co-host here on Fully Equipped. We're going to be doing a ton of content going forward. You're going to see a lot of him during launch season. Thank God, because I'm just getting too old to do those videos. But we're rounding out the gear team here. Also, Jack Hirsch, who's our crack writer that does all the tour stuff that you see on golf.com. So we have a really, really nice young team. Well,
Yeah.
two young people and one old person. And that's what we got going on. So we're going to do a small little interview here, Mr. Morrow, so people can get to
Okay.
know you. So where are you from? Like where I know where you are now because you're about, you know, 2 rooms away from me in the same hotel. We're doing a
Yeah.
Colin Watson scam here.
Yeah.
But where do you live and how did you get into why are you here?
Yeah. So I grew up in Chicago suburbs my whole life. I've moved away three different times and come back 3 different times. But I'm still now based Chicago suburbs. Got into golf late in my life, honestly. Like I just turned 30, and I didn't start taking anything in the golf industry seriously, honestly, until I was probably 21, 22.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I ended up on a it's a long story of how I got there, but I ended up on a prototype testing team for Mitsubishi golf shafts. And when they started explaining to me all the things that could change, all the intricacies, and all of the like nerdy little details of just one part of the golf club, I was hooked instantly. Like when I do something, I have to go full bore into it, or I just don't do it at all. So started to just fly down the rabbit hole of Bomb Squad and WRX forums and going through like any little bit of tiny information that I could find. Some of it for the better, some of it for the worse. But yeah, then I was hooked and took a little bit of a break from it for a couple of years when I moved, and then came back. Took a job in the industry at a big club fitter, and I just learned a ton. Got back into being obsessed with gear and the mechanics of our equipment and how changing variables and also making certain decisions allows you to unlock different abilities in your game. And the coolest part for me was the the breadth at which that works. It works for a PGA Tour player, and it works for the 25 handicap partner that I have at my home club. And that to me was the craziest part, right? And then I decided to leave that job and start Made for the Range uh, almost almost to this day 2 years ago. So really cool
That's
stuff, and
crazy.
now we're going.
So so I always get fascinated on how people get into this racket, right? Like,
Yeah,
your story is obviously interesting. We were talking about this in the car today, 'cause we're both here at Live Chicago, and which is just, kind of opportunistic for us, but just kind of, serendipitous for you. Like, you're starting your first day at a new job, and, a tour events in your hometown. You're an
yeah,
hour from your house. The kind of stars kind of align.
yeah. The
Um,
timing of all this was crazy. Yeah,
It's crazy, but the thing that I always get fascinated, and I get this question a lot. People ask me all the time, like, "How do I get your job?" Is like the main one. How do I get a job like yours? How do I get a job like yours? And the funny thing is, like, um, again, how what we were talking about in the car is, everybody has a different leap that they have to take to kind of get started, right? To begin, is what I always tell my kids. And you know, the interesting thing with you is that you had some exposure to the industry, but it wasn't like you've been here and been in a million different jobs and did this. You kind
uh,
of, when I first heard of you, you were a club champion,
yeah.
right? I think you were working in that back shop, that little content studio in Denver, I think is where it was, right? And, or is
Uh,
it, no, 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 no. Is that Golf Tech? Is
that
that
was
Golf
Golf Tech.
Tech?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So, but at the same time, there's a lot of people in those situations, and that want to break through and do it now do what Jake's doing, because you're going to have access to tour players and get to go to tournaments and go to the OEMs and do all the fun stuff and write articles and create content around the stuff around the things that you love. So
yeah,
the biggest takeaway that anybody listening to Jake and what he's done, or even if you've heard my story about how I got here, um, a lot of it is, learning that there's no straight lines to get to where you want to go. I mean, I don't
yeah.
think at any point in the last, before maybe 6 months ago, Jake, you probably didn't think you'd ever be working with me. I didn't think that was when I was at Callaway, there wasn't an opportunity for us to really do
Yeah, it was
anything
hard.
together.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's funny how it works. And, like I've told you before, like by the time I get done with you, hopefully, um, you're able to, you and young Jack Hirsch can take this platform and make it something, your own. That's not mine. That's very much yours. And, if I do my job well, you guys will be couple of big dogs, and the old guy can go and sail off into the sunset. So that is the hope. 'Cause I feel like I'm raising two other kids, which is amazing.
yeah,
And but I gotta hand it to you, kiddo. Like the thing that you do well, and I've said this to multiple people. So take note when you guys start to see his content. And I loved how you put golf education, because that's what you do. Like
yeah,
you're a teacher. Is very informative. I find stuff, that I learn from Jake constantly, stuff, because I don't study product, especially when I was at Callaway, especially as it regards to, parts, shafts, grips, stuff like that. Because I wasn't getting paid to study that stuff. I knew it all, but I knew it at a tour level. I didn't know it at a consumer level, like how to explain it to a consumer. Um, so really happy to have you. Okay, and I did want to take a moment to interrupt this show to bring you attention. Something we're very proud of is our T-commerce. If you want a logoed, fully equipped golf.com logoed merchandise from Grayson, G4, multiple companies. If you want the cool stuff with the fully equipped logo, go to our T-commerce section of the site. A lot of cool stuff in there. Obviously, I don't have any of it on right now. I just didn't have time to put all that stuff on, but there's some cool logoed stuff in there, and working tirelessly to liven it up even more than it already is. So make sure you guys check that out if you want all the fullyequippedgolf.com branded logo, gear, T-commerce is where you'd find it. Let's get back to the show. Second question I'm going to ask you was, what kind of game do you have? Like, can you play?
Yeah. So right now, my handicap is sitting at. You know what? Let's make this official. My handicap index, according to the USGA, is
What does that say?
1 point. Nah, you can't see it. It's 1.7.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, so I've got it. My iron game this year has been dreadful. Is the proper word for it. I've got a driver that I've loved more than any other driver in my life right now, so that part is giving me a lot of confidence, and then I can hit a wedge pretty well. But if you give me an 8-iron to a 6-iron, I'm pretty screwed right now.
You got problems.
Yeah, big problems.
You got problems. But that's
Yeah.
the fun thing about golf, right? I mean, it's always something. You know, that your driver and your irons are cooking, your wedges are bad, and your putter's bad, and everything else is good. It's like it never quite adds up. So let me ask you this: what, coming from where you're coming from? So like I have to explain this really quick to the people that are listening. When you're an independent content creator, so if you're made for the range, if you are a equipment junkie, if you are you are a self-sustaining island, meaning that you are self-financing, you are obviously forward facing, but you're siloed. It's you. I mean, if you stop, the platform stops, right? So
correct. Yeah.
You're not part of a team, and the OEM ecosystem and the PGA Tour, Live Tour ecosystem, that's all a bunch of people, right? And you have to get to know those people, and you have to break into the industry. So, like, you did a very good job of, I would say, getting yourself 2/3 of your way through the golf Rolodex. To be fair, right?
Yeah.
So now knowing that you are going to work for golf.com and now you're on the mothership, like, what are you most looking forward to having access to that maybe you had trouble having access to before?
I think a lot of people would expect the answer to be like certain equipment that I haven't been able to touch yet. Like there's some companies out there that are a little bit more strict about who they work with and what they do and the size of the platform you have to do that. But honestly, for me, it's more about the team and the company and like the access that I have to now produce the things that I've wanted to do, regardless of what equipment is actually in the video or what we're physically talking about. The longer form ideas, the stuff that takes a little bit of time to produce because it's something that's either iterative, so you have to wait for the next thing to happen before you can complete that part, or it's something that is storytelling, and you have to be able to start with the first piece of it, and then you have to kind of like wait and see how it progresses to develop what that final piece of content is going to be like. And I think that part's going to be really cool. I also love that we have the ability to connect so many things, and like again, the people that we have now, like going from Dylan to Claire to Maddie to me to Jack to you to to Sean, like Zach and Sean, like there's so many avenues now that are open, and it's less about like I get to go to TPI now, right? Like that's sick. But I'm more excited about the opportunity for production than I am about like the fact that I get to go to TPI now.
Yeah, I mean, because that's all part and parcel to the job, right? You get access to cool stuff, and you get, it's no secret that you get a lot of free stuff, and this, you get to try. Your job is to test golf equipment and inform people what's going on. But if I go back and look at my Callaway days, my people ask me like, what was your favorite part about the Callaway job? And I think the gearheads want to say, oh, being able to build stuff on the truck. And look, that got old. Honestly, that got old after like 6 months, 9 months. Like I loved my guys on the truck. Like I loved my people at HQ. Like I had, I got an opportunity to work with some amazing people at Callaway, and some of my closest friends in my life now are from that job, and that's what makes it fun. And it obviously affords me the ability to meet people like you, to to study people like you, to figure out if you're a good fit for what I want, where I want to go, or where I want golf equipment coverage to go, and this is where it gets fun, right? Like this is where this job and bringing you on, and I told this to our bosses, and I said this is why I took the job, was the ability to build a team and the ability to really take over a marketplace and be the spot for everybody to go uh to uh to uh to get their gear information. So any with any show, we have a guest that's going to be popping on here. We have Marshall Thompson, who is the PGA Tour, DP Tour, Live just tour rep for Fujikura Golf. He's going to be popping in here shortly. If he's not in here already, he's probably in the waiting room waiting for us. But Marshall's a good friend of mine. I think you guys are familiar with each other. Jake, I think you know
Yeah,
Marshall as well.
Marshall and I have done a bunch of stuff together. Yeah.
So he was like on my Gear Dive podcast. I think he was like guest number 2. I think my first guest was Larry Bobka, which was just an unbelievable podcast. Do you know Larry Bobka is?
Yeah, where was Larry? I just saw Larry somewhere.
At Second Swing, probably.
Yeah, but he was. Oh, that's where it was, in Minneapolis. He was on. He was visiting all the trucks. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's friends with my my home course pro, actually. Believe it or not.
Him and Rocco are tight, but he's the man responsible for the Titleist T-Blade. He's the man responsible for the 970. He's the man responsible for the 962B. Anyway, we're gonna bring on Larry one of these times. Now that you're here, Jake, we'll bring on some bangers. But Marshall just popped into the chat room here. Mark's gonna bounce him in. And where is he? There. Look at that guy. So Marshall, we're gonna cut right to the chase here. So this is gonna be just a golf general conversation. We're gonna talk about equipment, stuff like that. But we have to get something out of the way in regards to Fujikura and the company that you work for. You guys won the Grand Slam this year, which is that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Ventus Black was in a specific shaft too, which is crazy.
It's crazy that it's not only a company that wins a Grand Slam, but also Ventus Black, the model.
Mm-hmm.
It's special.
Yeah. Okay,
so I'm gonna
crazy. So we have 3 gear dorks on here. I'm gonna give you my opinion from all my observations over 6 years now with Ventus. It was 6 years, 7 years with Ventus, 2018.
Yeah.
This is when people ask me why Ventus, like why you guys have become like the Titleist golf ball of the shaft market, because you have. I mean, the level of amount of shafts that go into play is just insane. There's 2 things that I will say that Ventus does. I hate to say better than everybody else, but seems to do better than everybody else. I'll silo it to a PGA Tour range. You can stick those shafts, hand it to any player, and whoever it is, they're gonna hit it out of the guts more often than not, for whatever reason. And the second thing is those shafts transfer from head to head more efficiently than any other shaft I've ever seen. You could stick it in a GT2. You could take the same shaft out, stick it in a triple diamond. You can, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
That's my observation. Now, Jake, day one, Jake, what do you think? And we're going to get the expert down here who's going to tell us what's really happening.
So I think 2 things. I think one, specifically, if we're talking about the black, I've talked to plenty of reps about this. There's basically no challenge to it, straight up. Like if you put something like head to head straight up against it with no adjustments, it's hard to take Ventus Black out of a player's hands and tell them that you can give them something else that's going to feel the same. Like I just don't see it, and not many other people do either. And then the other thing is, I do think that there's something to be said for when you build them, the entire lineup, for me at least, whenever I built them, is they're all marginally counterbalanced. Like they're not counterbalanced parts. That's not what I'm trying to say. So nobody clip that on me.
Sure, Jake.
They're all marginally counterbalanced. Like I think there's the way the weight is distributed from in the graphite in the profile. I think that's part of the consistency thing. And then with the VeloCore, or now the VeloCore Plus, there's obviously technology working there. So it's hard to say that it's not for any reason, right? Like I know people that are like, oh, shaft technology. But it works. And it works really well. So you can't argue with that.
Yeah, so when we're doing fittings, the main thing is to keep one variable the same as we go in from new head to new head every single year, right? So new heads come out, sometimes CG will move, MOI will change. There might be a bias to these heads, whether they're draw, fade, low spin, high spin, right, left, up. There's just sometimes a bias. But if you can keep the variable the same in terms of a shaft, and then kind of see where the numbers go and see if we need to improve on it, it gives us a good idea of where we need to go. I will say the one thing that we have had on our side for a very long time at Fujikura is our employees have been there for a long time. So I'm getting feedback
Yeah.
in terms of how to design these products from a guy that's been on tour for over 26, 27 years. And so he's seen a profile or two. He's hand rolled a shaft or two. He knows what works and what doesn't work. And by this rep, Pat McCoy, he's the guy I've learned from, and he's been my boss
Yeah.
and a rep for Fuji. So we not only have experience and people that have been with the company for a long time, but we also, I would say it's an investment too. We made a big investment years ago in terms of our Enzo 3D high-speed motion capture camera system and learn and understanding how the shaft is bending in 3D space. And I think when we first created Ventus and we put on this multi-material bias core, Velo core in a nutshell, and making it full length and doing it, putting it twice on terms of the shaft, right? And on that plus or minus 45 and limiting a shaft from twist and controlling that face and controlling that club head. I feel that no other company or shaft company to this date has done what we've done in terms of we put the investment up with our camera system. We have the experience with the reps, and we have a full-time product tester as well who is constantly
Yeah.
testing these products. So I feel we kind of nailed it on the head, and we can only get better from here.
But you said something interesting though, because that's what it was. When we first talked, I was telling Jake that you were I think guest number 2 on the Gear Dive podcast. I think years
Oh,
like
cool.
7 years ago or something, whenever the hell that was, right when we first met. And we were talking about Ventus, and that's kind of when Ventus first started, right? And it
Hmm.
started with Blue, and I remember Blue was it was actually brilliant marketing because you guys kept Blue out for like a year or 18 months before anybody saw Black,
Yeah.
right? But the funny thing with Blue is that Blue still worked for your higher spin, high speed, high launchers. Like it's still, you could make it Ventus Blacky if you really needed to, right?
Yep.
Which is another rare, it made it another rare part, which is what I think sort of started to catch steam on tour for Pat was the
Hmm.
ability to take one part and make it into 9 different parts if you needed to, right? Like so,
Yeah.
and so then you guys launch Black, like after everybody's begging for a low spin one, Black comes out, and then obviously you have the red. So the one thing that you said though, and I can say this across the Ventus line, when you're talking about torque, like you could go to a lot of different shaft companies that have quote unquote low torque, but it's how you get to low torque, which is
Yeah.
the trick, right?
Yeah.
That's the IP is you can make anything low torque. It's like the putter. It's like the lab versus the world situation right now with putters.
But what costs though too, right? Because the lower the torque I go, the worse feel that I have. The stiffer
Correct.
the feel goes up. So you have to be conscious of that as well too.
Right.
So I think with Ventus Black, when that originally came out, it was stiff across the board, but it's still at a 3-1 torque, the original OG Ventus. And again, as the torque will go down as the weight goes up. So I think the 7 is probably like 2.9. Don't kill me on this, but 2.9. So it's still retaining a lot of feel torsionally, but it's also very stiff in terms of bending stiffness.
So to my point, what I was saying before was, which is one of the reasons why I say like center face contact
Yeah.
is key because you and I have talked about this a lot, Marshall, about the shaft being a. This is my opinion. I don't know if you said this, but a timing mechanism, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like Kellen calls it the engine of the golf club. I call it your timing mechanism, whatever the hell you want to call it. But essentially, it is the
It's the
it's
timing
your
device for the swing, as
it's
we
your
said in
drummer.
our
It's
old
literally your
podcast. Yeah.
rhythm. It's your rhythm keeper in a band. Essentially, is what it is, and that's why you can hand a TX to somebody like Rocco Media, and he can sit the same shot up in the air with spin all day long, and you can hand something really whippy to somebody like Bryson DeChambeau. He'd probably still make it work. It just depends on that player and how they react to stiffness, weight, all that stuff. So, but the one thing again, and I have another question I'm going to ask you about marketing, but the one thing that I've noticed versus your, I could throw Diamana in there in some cases, depending on the profile, but for the most part, overall, year over year, club launch to club launch, when you put, if you start with Ventus, if you're fitting somebody, if you start there, you're not going anywhere else,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is a very, very rare
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Usually it's like you have 5 or 6 shafts you're going to bring out there, but if you start with a Venti, like that guy's going home with a Ventus,
Yeah.
or that girl's going. Like it's just, it makes it very hard to beat. So I have a question, and we talked about. I was talking to our friend Bucky Coe, who's now a Titleist Scotty
Huh.
champion.
I love Buck. He's a great guy. I
So
grew up
he's
with Bucky.
amazing. So I do those AMAs on Friday, and you end up, you get 500 questions, and you end up trying to answer the, as many as you can get before your kids, wake up at night or what. That's kind of when I answer all those questions. And one of the questions was, what product do tour players have the most influence over as far as sales? Like, and my response was wedges are
I was
number
going to say
one.
wedges. Yeah.
Wedges number one, because there's a 1-to-1 correspondence between tour usage and market share. Like it's
Yeah.
1-to-1, and every single time Voki goes up, like it just goes like
Yeah.
this. Second is shaft, driver shaft,
Yeah.
and third was drivers. Right?
Drivers. Yeah.
Okay. So going back in time, because we were friends when all this started going down. Because I remember, I would ask you guys about the counts periodically, about how many shafts you have in play. Well, we had 50, we had 75, we had.
Yeah.
How much does it help? And I know you don't pay any of these people, which is another thing. Like there's not very, very few shaft companies that pay players, if
Correct.
any.
Correct.
How much does it help when all of a sudden Rory McIlroy's in Aventus? Like how much does it help if Tommy Fleetwood's in Event? Is there a legitimate uptick in sales if all of a sudden a big player's got it in play?
Absolutely. I would say our goal as tour reps, and Pat, myself, and Andrew, we're going to help any tour pro that out, because to get on the PGA Tour, live, Corn Ferry, DP, any tour that you get on, any of these guys can win at any given week, right? Yes, sure, Scotty's winning at a much higher clip, but I would say, we're always going to help any tour player we can. But yeah, absolutely, it helps. If we get big names like Scotty and Rory and Tommy, if anybody that we get to use a Fujikura shaft, it's almost too. I think other tour pros look at it, and it's almost a keeping up with the Joneses. And what is that? I got to try it. I got to have it. Um, I will say that's part of it too. Also, I have to thank Bryson DeChambeau too, because in this era of long drives, everybody is trying to get more distance, and with that, that opened up an opportunity for more testing, and we were winning most of those battles, right? So it actually, guys that
Yeah.
normally wouldn't be testing now are testing. Now they're
Yeah.
trying Aventus, and we were winning those battles, and that helped attribute to, a lot of our product going in play. But I mean, from a sales point of view, we will sell a lot more product if we have, the top 50 players in the world using it.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
Jake.
have. So the one thing I want to chime in on here too. I think Marshall, I've told you this story before, but so when I was at Club Champion, I was there 2020, 2022, 2023ish. Um, I I remember talking to people about the marketing behind some of the components, and Club Champion has a million things on the wall, right? But the very apparent winner, as far as like if you had if you had a Daryl survey for Club Champion fits while I was there, was Ventus shafts. And I started to figure out, like, okay, what is it about these that's just killing it this hard? Because there has to be something, right? And I think that one of the best things that you guys did was putting out those launch charts, the
Mm,
handle, middle, tip stiffness, those launch charts. I knew fitters that had that launch chart as their desktop background.
yeah.
So, like, as guys are in fitting bays, they get so comfortable with the lineup. They get so understood of how that shaft operates in a certain swing, and why going from a black to a blue to a red for somebody would work. And like, I can't even count the amount of guys that would just start with Ventus Blue for pretty much everybody, and then they
Hmm.
would adjust into black or red depending on what the player was doing. And
Right.
the amount of success that they had doing that. Now, to give credit, like, the parts are fantastic. Obviously, the parts are great. The parts win for a reason, but they were just shutting other shafts out from being tested in the first place because of the confidence that the fitters had in the ability for the shaft to do what you guys were saying the shaft is going to do. And that made a huge difference. And I think from a consumer standpoint, that influenced a lot with others too, coming out with more simplistic launch charts and trying to get people to understand the parts of the golf shaft and why a lineup is the way a lineup is. And like to me, and I've told a lot of people this, that started with Fujikura putting that on the website the way that it was. It wasn't numbers, it wasn't weird words, it wasn't too many of them. It was just firm, stiff, soft, right? Like
Yeah.
it just the way you guys did that, I think also from the consumer side, it made it so easy to understand the profiles that people started to appreciate the conversation they could have about why they were in that shaft, not just not just the fact that they had it, but like
Yeah.
why they had it.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to our Miss Tory Speeder days when we had red, blue, and purple, and then a tour spec, right? We all the reps tour from the tour, and everyone that sells our shafts have always mentioned that those color, that's all they remembered was the color cord, the colorways to help define launch and spin. And then when we went away from that, everyone's like, dude, what are you guys doing? That was the easiest thing to go back to. So that was the feedback that we took going into Atmos, and then Ventus as well, to do the color combination to help our fitters easily identify a product off the wall and then easily fit somebody with it. The EI curves and profiles, those are still available on our website to this day. I will say, Fujikura, we are very transparent with the data that we take and that we get, and realize those are on our machines at our factories. We have very tight quality control, but we publish all of this information in terms of, if you go on our website, you can see all of our specs in terms of tip flex, butt flex, CPM, torque. You can see EI profiles. You can see overall weight. I mean, we're very transparent in the numbers that we produce, and we are very confident that when you get one of our shafts, it was it passed all the QC tests back at our factories when they're getting made, and that you are getting a part that is going to be exactly what you expect when you get fit with it.
I have a question on that though, like, and something I kind of learned, and Marshall, just confirm this or deny it for me. What I've learned, from fitting not a ton of players, but enough, like over the last, because I got a crack at fitting, some live guys, and especially at the tail end of my Callaway time. And the one thing that I did learn about red, blue, black, for example, and this goes across for everybody that's got a shaft and a profile, right? Like I know players that if they hit it high, for example, I could hand them a Ventus, depending on how they deliver the golf club. I can hand them a Ventus red and they'll hit it low. Or they'll hit it
Hmm.
That's
like
me.
this, right?
That's me.
Yep.
The
Marshall
one
did
that
that
always
with
kind of
me
stays in the
actually.
middle is blue. Blue,
Yep.
I say is on brand for pretty
Yep.
much everybody. But I can also have
Yeah.
somebody that's having a trouble launching it, depending on how much dynamic loft they add. If they add a lot of dynamic loft, I can give them a black, or if they'll hit it straight up in the air, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've also
Yeah, that's me.
found that if I have a player that's having a hard time turning it over, it's easier for me to fit them into black to get them to turn it over than it is with red or blue
Mm,
because the shaft's
yeah.
not moving. Is
Yeah.
that is that just me being an idiot, or is my spidey senses correct? Because it's happened like four or
No,
five times.
we've always said the golf swing is like a thumbprint. It's unique to every single individual, right? And so how you put pressure in this, how you bend and deflect the shaft with your swing type and how it delivers up. Yeah, sometimes that might cause more droop, more twist, more lead, more dynamic loft for certain individuals. And there are certain guys that I fit with, on the DP tour that have actually uh, got lower spin with a red product or
Like
even a
Tom
TR
Tom
red.
Tom McKibben, for example, is a perfect example.
Yeah,
Somebody that stays on top of it, that really leans the shaft. Like, he
yeah,
hits a driver like a 7 iron. So like
yeah,
red's coming out for him like this. Like,
yeah. And
Yeah.
their rep over on the DP, Scott, when he was working with him, they were trying to lower launch and lower spin, and we'd always just go black or we'd go stiffer or we'd tip it more. And it turns out that he was actually hitting it lower and lower on the face, or helping it or changing his attack angle to accommodate the stiffness that he's feeling, and started launching it high and spinning it more. And then, yeah, and then it was one of those things where Scott worked with him and they tried a TR red, and we actually got him to hit it higher. It moved his impact location higher and more middle or towards closer to the toe from heel and low, and he launched it higher and spun it less with a part that in theory is softer. It should lead more. It should cause more dynamic loft. But there are certain players, depending on how you load and deliver that club. We call them opposite guys. I've seen a lot of those guys on tour, to where that's why you can't fit flex for swing speed. A lot of
Right.
times
That's kind of
you
where I was going. Yeah. This is I like where you're walking right now. Keep walking.
for the general consumer, you fit them for the swing that they bring in, and then you make some head and shaft adjustments to get them, find the shaft that's the right timing device that helps them hit the center of the face, and then dial and face angle and loft to get them to hit it, in the center of the face, and get your start direction correct, and then you're launching your spin. So sometimes somebody who does maybe it a little bit slower, they could benefit from potentially a Ventus black or even a blue, rather than just say, oh, well, they need a Ventus white or red because they swing it at 50 miles an hour,
Right.
and need more launch and spin. So, yeah, I've never fit flex for swing speed.
No, and that's like a misconception in the fitting industry is like, oh, you don't
Yeah.
swing it hard enough for a block, or you don't swing it, like you could theoretically, for example, my dad, old Bud, who doesn't swing it very hard,
Oh, but
there might be a world where I give him a black 7X and a 3 wood, and he might hit the piss out of it just because of how he
yeah,
throws the golf. I mean, you have no idea. Like that's why
yeah,
I always find it interesting. But you said something that I've said before that you hit the nail on the head, and this is one of the secret sauce of the Ventus thing. When you're talking about black, being, depending on, because obviously, like with a golf club, especially if you're going to optimize performance, there's that stat on tour called total driving efficiency, which is basically your fitters. That's your fitter stat. Who's the best? Who created the best fit for a specific player? Like who got the most juice out of a fit for a player? Like that's why Sepp Straka is like always in the top five because his driver's optimized. Like for as fast as he swings, he gets the most and the straightest balls at everything that he hits
he's
with
a
his
great
driving ball.
driver of the golf ball.
Right.
Yep,
But it's the combination of the player and the tool, right? So,
yep,
but you said something really, really cool that I've noticed with Ventus versus your competition is your dispersion up and down the face is north to south. You don't hear a lot of conversation about toe and heel with Ventus.
yeah,
It's where on the face north to south that you're hitting it, but it's all in that center line up and down the face. So
yeah,
typical misses for your Ventus players, and you can say this about Rory, you can say this about Fleetwood, is low on the face or too high on the face. Right? Like that's typically where they live. And I think that overall, if you're going to put an umbrella over everything, that quality of strike or that consistency north to south, or basically where you guys live, is unique to you guys versus your competition. So if you wanted to ask the question, like what really, from my eyes, what really breaks it down is you guys have mitigated a miss down from floor to ceiling as opposed to like all the walls out here. It's like it's just right in the middle of the face. It just depends if you're
yeah.
gonna get the low spin part or the high spin part.
I tell you, there's a lot that goes into it. So if you look at if I were to show you our player testing, we pretty much made that where we measure, basically we have this page of impact locations of every single shot hit, and then player, you can break it down by player averages, model, and all this stuff. I mean, that is something that we are consistently looking at. How do we get it as centered as possible? I get that you can miss one high, low, but over time, I want all players' averages to be as close to the center as possible. And so we work really hard, and our designs help us get there. Enzo has helped us get there. Materials that we're putting on the shafts help us get there. Velocore was just, it was a part of Enzo, is what we were doing. We were, at the time, we had already measured how shafts were bending in 3D space, and then now, at that time, we were then looking at the torsional aspect. So we were changing torques, and also torques in different locations as well, and measuring those and getting all that data. And then That's when VeloCore technology had happened. And then now flash forward to where we are, 7, 8, 9 years later, however long it's been, it feels like it's been at least a decade, but we've got VeloCore Plus. So we've improved upon the original VeloCore, right? These small by adding a layer to that bias sheet. So now you've got 3 layers that assist with helping stabilize the shaft and controlling the face and getting it close to as center as possible.
Um, interesting, interesting. Jake, I kind of want to pivot to we had a conversation last night, Marshall, you and Eric and I, about we're ordering some shafts for our boys, our quarterback boys. I'm not going to say their names, but
Yeah.
obviously Axiom's I don't want to say relaunching to the marketplace, but it's you got adding some products to it at some point and some new weights and this and that. How does VeloCore and Jack? I mean Jake, I want you to add to this too. I'm gonna get the Jake thing screwed up, by the way. Our writer's Jack and he's Jake. This is gonna get all
Yeah, we
fucking.
talked
This is
about it
gonna
already.
get
Yeah.
bananas, by the way.
And Johnny, just JJJ.
Yeah, it's just a
I do have
disaster.
one. I have one driver question, Johnny,
Yeah, go.
before we go to Axiom. So, Marshall, something that I've seen being tested on tour quite a bit is Ventus Black. A heavy Ventus Black actually was the common denominator, so like a 7. Ventus Black in a 10K head. So I want to talk about what you just mentioned with VeloCore
That's
Plus
funny.
and the adaptation of torque, right? And then how you guys are changing torque in different parts of the golf shaft. But now we get this giant big story about how to not have the head move at impact, which to the normal consumer, the idea would be, well, if this isn't twisting and this isn't twisting, does something need to twist at some point to make this more efficient? But then you start to see these guys have a 10K head and a black or a black similar profile. What about that combination is clicking for people? Because I've seen a lot of people that you wouldn't think test that combination. And it's kind of crazy the numbers that I'm seeing come off of some of those guys because like normally you think of the 10K heads, spinny, high launching, easy to hit, right? But we're seeing
Yeah.
guys hit 2,100 bullets at 100 feet in the air at 178 miles an hour. And it's wild to watch. So, is there an impact that the 10K trend has had for you guys in what those fittings look like, specifically for a 10K head? And then, B, what is clicking with that combination for that level of player to even think about putting a G430 10K or a QI35 Max or something like that in play?
Yeah, it's dependent upon I think the one who's benefiting here is the consumer, right? We're trying to minimize movement in some way, right? Right or left. And if I can do that with the forgiveness of a head, and I can also do that with a shaft, um, and I don't lose ball speed, and I can keep my launch and spin in the window that I want to be. I mean, it's why wouldn't you use something like that? Like, I think certain players are that way too, right? Certain players like to see it start left and cut. Certain players like to see it start right and draw. Other guys just want to hit it straight. I'm that way. If I just want to hit it dead straight, and if it falls a little bit right or left, so be it. So why wouldn't I take the forgiveness of a 10K head, no matter what brand it is from? Give me that distance. And as long as, sometimes those more forgiving heads based on the CG, it's usually probably going to be a little bit further back. They can slow down speed a little bit. But the heads today are so good that we're not seeing that big of a drop in terms of ball speed. Plus, I'm hitting it straighter. Certain players, that's a home run, right? So you're getting ultra stability with the shaft and forgiveness, and you're getting that with the head. I mean, and you're not losing too much ball speed and you're hitting more fairways. Life is good. I think it just depends on the player and what you're looking for.
Marsh,
Do you think
before we get into Axiom irons, and just to piggyback on Jake's question, like, but be it out on tour, across the world because you travel on this job. What driver heads of the new launches? Name two, just so we're not playing favorites here, because nobody likes that. Everybody gets all fucking butthurt.
Yeah. Name
What
one and then just name another one.
just
Um,
what two
there's
drivers do you get excited about?
I see what you're doing here, Johnny, and I don't like it.
It's an honest show, bud. I want to hear
No,
what you
I
think.
know. I hear you. I hear you.
I asked Kellen the same question, by the way. He said GT
I,
two.
I know you did. I watched it. I love that. I love that guy, by the way. Kellen's good people. We'll get to him in a second, but Here's the thing I will say. Every time a new head comes out, we have our own CG and MOI at Fuji. So I'm measuring specs on it. I kind of get an idea. My job is I know what my shafts do. I'm measuring every single head to kind of figure out where that is to see if there's any bias into these heads so I can do a better job in terms of fitting these tour guys. So I know a lot of information about these heads and what they're going to do before they even hit it. I do all my own independent testing. And again, I'm not a tour player, but I'm a decent enough golfer to where I tested them all. And I will say, honestly, they are very, very, very close.
Yeah, all of them are. I agree.
All of them are pretty darn good. You
Yeah.
know, to me, a big metric is right. If I was going to look, and this is how I'll answer that question. If I was going to look at it and say, who are the non-contracted tour guys and what are they using this year? I would
GT3.
say, I would say GT. The Titleist GT is a big one. I will say the Ping. You know, they've done a great job with with the 440. I will say it seems like it has the forgiveness of the 430, and it's even a little bit faster,
Yeah.
which has been liked by a lot of independent non-contracted guys. I think TaylorMade and Callaway have also done a fantastic job. I think the Strixon driver has been great this year too,
I
which
have
not a lot of
one.
people
I
talk
have one.
about.
I have a Strixon coming in the mail. I'm excited to hit this thing.
Really good. PXG's sneaky good. Cobra has a really fast driver, and you get 19 million options to change loft and lie and face, and it's so for me to even pick two, I would say is really hard. But I will say, looking at the guys, the non-contracted guys, and what they're playing, Titleist had a great year. Ping had a great year. And Callaway had a really good year. TaylorMade's kind of focused on some really top movers, some top needle movers, but they make a great driver. They all make great drivers.
See, I look at it like this. I like, especially coming out of the Callaway haze. Like, I'm trying to see platform to platform if there was one driver that really made a leap forward versus its predecessor or somebody else in their category, right? Somebody else.
If that's your question, I would say Titleist.
Yeah, GT2 specifically, that head
Really?
to me was the one that because I remember TSR and then TSRI, whatever. I mean, they had a bunch of them, whatever. But the twos were okay. They were forgiving. They weren't very fast. They were just okay. This GT2, for example, speaking of north south up and down the face, and really having a very neutral CG. Because the driver that I play right now is the GT2 with the Ventus Red. And what I've found with that head, which is very unique, and I haven't seen it in a long time, is north to south. And I said this in one of my What's in the Bag video. North to south, that driver is incredible. What I mean by that is if you want to hit that kind of, tee it high, that big FU ball that's got no spin on it, that ball's in there. But if you want to tilt CG, tee it down low, get that thing going out north to south, that driver is incredible. I've always found a driver that did one thing really, really well. I've had a hard time in the last 8, 9 years finding a driver that does both. And that's the first driver that I've hit in years that I could tee it this far off the ground and hit this bullet that
Yeah,
doesn't overspin. And then I could tee it high and hit this big tomahawk if I want to. I haven't seen a
yeah,
driver for me personally that I've been able to do that with at will like I
yeah.
have this one.
I think and again, that was just kind of leaps and bounds from their last product that they've created, right? They've always made good product, right? But I
Oh
think
God,
in
yeah.
I think maybe ball speeds might have just been just maybe a touch on the low side compared to some of their competitors. And I will say this new driver has put them, all the drivers now are just as close as they've ever been.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's fun. It's exciting. I think everybody makes great stuff, right? Certain CGs and certain MOI, certain heads, they just match up better for certain swing types, and um, But I will say. There's a lot of good drivers in the marketplace. I will say the one thing I've kind of noticed is that some players are just a little reluctant to switch this year more so than years past. Um, and who knows if that'll change? But it's once you have success with something, it's hard to forget about that and move on. And so Just product has been it's been good. It's been good for a long time. The last 6 years, I would say, have been extremely good in terms of drivers that have come out from the market from all OEMs.
I think it's an argument for 2-year driver cycles. If there was ever a year to argue 2-year driver cycles, I would say for TaylorMade it would have been. I can't say QI35 because QI35 in the stores kills. Like
It's great.
it's just Rory and Scotty don't play it. Like that's the only argument against,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
which makes the
yeah.
world
So
crazy. Yeah.
right, but from a tour perspective, and Jacob, I'm curious your input on this, but from a tour perspective, I think a lot of the players on tour would probably prefer everybody to go across the board with 2-year driver cycles so they can actually work in a driver and get used to it. And because truth be told, guys, like say for example, Callaway launches Bombay Sapphire Triple Diamond in January. Kellen and those guys don't really understand that driver at a ninja level until April. Like
Yeah.
they really don't know. I mean, they know enough to fit and to understand the nature of it, but they don't know exactly what it's going
Yeah.
to do under the gun for specific players until like April, right? So
You know,
that's
it's a lot like shafts, in my opinion, right? Once you find a shaft that works well, you kind of hold on to it with dear life. It's the same thing like with driver and bringing up QI 35, right? Yes, maybe Scotty and Rory didn't play with it, but that's because they hit the QI 10 so well. But if you look at Colin Morikawa, if you look at Tommy Fleetwood, guys on their staff who were probably playing older drivers last generation that came around, now they're in the new one. It works well for them. So we see the same thing with shafts too. It's just what works well for some people doesn't work the same for others. And, so I would say, yes, those two aren't playing it, but then they got those other two, right? So,
yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with Elite and Callaway Alexander doesn't play the Elite, but the rest of a big bulk of the staff does. I mean, it's just again, Kellen and I talked about this too. Like, and Adrian said this about Scotty. He said Scotty has a QI 35 that he hits as good as any
yep.
QI 10 that we've built him. The problem is he's won 1,000 tournaments in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And how do
he's
you
got to
tell
have
them
a good
no?
reason to change. I mean,
Right, right, right.
okay, we have like 10 minutes left in this thing, and I have two more questions. I want to talk a little bit about Axiom iron shafts. And Jake, I want to get your take. Have you personally? I like the Axiom iron shafts. I mean, I tried the 125 X's. I don't know 6, 7, 9 months ago. I don't know when the hell it was, but it was a while ago.
Hmm.
What's your experience with Axiom?
It's great. I remember the irony of my experience with Axiom is it's when I broke my wrist, I was swinging an Axiom shaft, um, because I was at PGA show when they launched, and I hit like three of the most flushed shots I've ever hit in my life. I remember I turned around and Spencer was still there at the time, and I turned around, and I looked at Spencer, and I was like, "Dude, these are sick." And also, I was mad at him because he didn't tell me that they had Velcro in them. He hid that from me for like months, um, which is just rude. But yeah, and then I hit that one. But then every time since then, so like Marshall, last time I saw you guys, I hit yours in the Toulon irons and was just flushing the hell out of them. Like the 105X just works so well. I think that the thing with me for Axiom is graphite in general has been a little bit tough because I think it's hard to match up the idea of stability and weight in graphite because one, consumer perception, and then two, the actual mechanics of what that means to the person swinging the golf club, right? And so, like the 105X, for example, doesn't feel like a 7.0 or a C Taper 130 or whatever other shaft you want to throw in that bucket, right? Like it feels like a shaft that you can feel through the swing, that you can load well, that makes really, really good impact and movement. Like, and that to me has been a big eye opener of playing with weight and getting people into different product and looking at the Axiom family as a way to show people the benefits of graphite, right? Because one of the jokes that I've had with some other people is, every year this is the year that graphite takes over steel, right? And that's we've said that for the last 10 years. And to me, the biggest benefit of graphite is the creativity that is unlocked by using graphite and what you can do with it, how you can roll it, the flags you can put on it, how you can set them up. Like the ability to create graphite iron shafts and the level of creativity that can come out of that is insane. And the more that we do it, the more good product that comes out, the more the Axiom lineup gets evolved and new profiles, new weights, new flexes come out, just makes it cooler every time it comes out. And I think it's a hard consumer education problem to solve, I think, is the biggest issue with it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Axioms are doing incredibly well. I mean, we are back ordered on these things constantly. I will
Yeah.
say the benefits of graphite, right, to me outweigh the ones of steel because I have the ability to do whatever I want to graphite. I can change a bending or twisting stiffness
Yeah.
separately. And so I can create any profile I want. I feel like we nailed it. We did a lot of testing against some really good steel parts that are in the world today. And I feel like we nailed this in terms of a profile by having a stiffer handle, stiffer tip, softer midsection, allowing for a little bit more launch and a little bit more spin, but then including velo core into that technology, which then you get the dispersion. I'm getting a higher peak height. I'm getting a little bit steeper descending angle to hold the greens. And I'm also getting a really fast ball speed number coming from just that EI profile. And it's the first time we've had a very, very high dollar, high price point graphite iron shaft, and we are sold out of these things constantly. We have launched these things and haven't even been able to keep up with demand on these things, and it's been great. And we just now added a new 95 gram and a 125 S flex, so it's tough because it won't fit everybody. It's we don't have multiple profiles of Axiom. We only have the one profile in terms of a higher launch and higher spin. But, I tell you what, from a
Yet?
sales point of view,
Don't have more
uh,
profiles yet?
I
You
don't.
want to throw that word in there?
I can't. Well, I mean, it's in a perfect world. I would love to have two or three more profiles. That's up to my team, and when we sit down, our new product review committee, and decide if this is a hole that we're missing. But right now, currently, with demand that we have on our current axioms, it's insane. It's been great. I feel we're doing a really good job, and once we sit down and talk with them, yes, there could be potential future profiles of that.
What's the biggest challenge with graphite, Marshall, as you see it? Like, what is the so you have the benefits, you have the ability to do whatever you want because it's not steel. Like, you can it's malleable, it's a blank canvas to whatever you wanted to do. One, I've always been my, my opinion's always been the hard part with graphite when you get heavier in weight and theoretically stiffer in profile, it the boardy word starts to creep in, right? So like the stiff products feels a little too much feely, and the
Yeah,
stiff stuff is uber stiff. So they
yeah.
haven't been able to find that, like what I would call like your Nippon 120S or your Dynamic Gold S400 kind of like middle ground gray area feel where it kind of
Well,
sits in the middle between heavy and stiff, but still playable. Like, is that? Do you think that's still true, or are you guys broken past that?
yeah. I would say we've broken past that, and I feel like we broke past that a little bit in our pro lineup of iron shafts. So when our pros came out, and then our axioms came out, I will say that back in the day when you used to design iron shafts, you used to wrap a bunch of material around a mandrel to help assist with swing weight purposes too, but also so to weight, swing weight. And it was really hard to get graphite iron composite irons to hold steel swing at its steel length, but some internal processes that we've created, some certain materials that became available, and the way that we roll these. If you looked inside, like in the inner diameter of like a an old graphite shaft, you could barely get a pin through it. If you look at it now, you can actually see a little decent size inner diameter or a little bit bigger hole, and that's going to equate to more feel too. You have the ability to put weights inside of our shafts in terms of they already hold steel swing at a steel length, but you have the ability to put tip weights inside of there. um, and I will say, I think that helps with the design process. The way that we had a high density composite core back in the day, which helped shove a bunch of weight towards the tip, that boosted swing weight, and also gave you some feel down there. And then we've kind of transitioned that into the Axiom as well. So I think that helps. The design process helps. The material process helps. Um, I think we've done a really good job in terms of having a stiff part that doesn't feel overly boardy or too soft.
Well, that's a nice answer. You just answered my
Yeah,
question.
for me, Marshall too. Like I think, and I can't remember who I was talking to about this at Fuji, but like the tricky part with graphite versus steel is I think there's there's a lot of misconceptions about it and like what it means because it's not old and slow, right? Like it's just not that's not what it is anymore. But B, like it's hard it's hard to get people out of recognizing steel versus graphite because the truth is like you just have to look at it as a different profile. Like it's just a shaft. It's not a graphite shaft or a steel shaft. It's just this is a different shaft in a different profile and it happens to be graphite. And I think if you can unlock that in people, it makes it like when I did my first testing with Andrew in the Enzo room, everything's painted black. If you're not a gear nerd, you have no idea what's in your hands. And there's no bias then to steel or this profile or graphite because one of the ones he put in my hands, I didn't even know was graphite. And he threw it at me and I even hit it. And I was like, I don't like, I think I know what this is. I was dead wrong. It was a graphite shaft. But how are you guys messaging that from a fitting standpoint? Because, like I mentioned earlier with the launch charts, you guys do a very, very good job of communicating with fitters directly. Because if you can get to the fitters, you can get to the customer, right? So, what's your guys' messaging on that, or how are you trying to portray that and using the Enzo to back up those thoughts of like it's just another profile to test. It's not whether it's a steel shaft or graphite shaft. It's just something that if this profile selection fits the swing that you're putting on the ball, it's something you should test.
Yeah, it's just getting the message across to the fitters just to give us an opportunity in that space, right? If a guy is in there for a fitting and he's going to be trying steel or graphite, why not try a Fujikura? I think the biggest mover for us in terms of our irons was having Velo Core technology because everybody knew exactly what our woods and how popular our Ventus were becoming, and then throwing that into our hybrids, and then not only our Axiom irons. I think that just consumers were just really, really excited to try something with VeloCore because they were having such success with it in their woods. And I think that's what's driving the demand is just I got it. They're working so great in my woods. Why wouldn't I try that at my irons? And then they're trying it in their irons, and what they're seeing is tighter dispersion, more centerness of contact. They're seeing a little bit more launch, a little bit more spin, able to stop it on the green. I mean, there's so much technology packed in this iron that it's and to have VeloCore technology, I mean the consumer's got to be really, really excited. And I think that's what's driving a lot of consumers in to go try it, and also our fitters to fit with it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
do you think this is the last question? We'll let you go, Marsh. But do you think there is a world, and maybe it's not, maybe it's not Axiom because I was a big advocate for MCI. I thought MCI was a really, really cool shaft. I still do.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's probably closer to at a tour level. I think you'd probably right now today, if you had to bring shafts out on tour, I think you'd probably get more takers out of MCI because I think that probably lives closer to your X100s or your S400 if you get in the stiffer stuff. This is just me talking. Um, but do you think there's a world where graphite becomes 40% of a tour field at any given, like, in iron sets? Do you think you're ever going to see that, or
Man,
is that
we worked really hard to get the woods to 40%. Man, we'd have to work really hard to get the irons. Yeah, I do. I do. It would take it just takes more than one profile. It's going to take a lot of learnings from, and honestly, the learnings on the iron side have come later from Enzo, right? We just started testing irons probably within the last couple of years on Enzo and being able to do that. Um, so I think as we start to push the envelope in terms of new testing for irons, and understanding how they're moving in 3D space, and then um, looking at some really things that have worked well for our current Axiom lineup. Yeah, I do feel there's a day that we could bring something out to the tour level, maybe three different models. You can't just have one model, right? It's almost like a
right?
red, blue, and black, almost like a wood shaft
Yeah,
kind of deal, to where, um, you know, um, we get these guys to try it and see. And I think definitely we can get there. But I would say Fujikura right now, under the leadership of our president, Dave Schneider, we're investing not only in new employees, we're investing in a new building for 2026. And with that comes two fitting bays. So one dedicated to Enzo cameras, one dedicated to product testing. So I think as we start to utilize and our Enzo, and it's like a faucet that doesn't turn off, and we just collect data on top of data in terms of Enzo data, in terms of product testing, learn more about woods and iron shafts that we already know now. I think the one that's going to benefit is definitely the end user, um, who tries and uses our shafts on a weekly basis, whether you're on tour or you're a consumer. And I think that's when we're going to take it to the next level. And I think you're going to start to see graphite kind of infiltrate, potentially into the irons.
Well, that's a great place to end this podcast. Oh, you got another question, Jake? Jake's raising his
I got
hand.
one more because there's one specific product in your guys' category that's absolutely sick right now, and I'm
Are you going to
seeing
say
a
that?
million
He's
people
gonna
go
say
into
putter.
it.
He's gonna say putter shaft.
No, I think he's going to say
No,
hybrid.
Ventus Red Hybrid. Just really quick explain, because Andrew explained it to me, and I think this is really cool for people to hear. So going into a shorter blank, right? Obviously hybrid versus a driver shaft. That profile had to change just a little bit. It's not a direct one-to-one profile change from driver shaft into hybrid shaft. It also was not a hybrid shaft that existed in the previous Ventus lineup. So Velo Plus has the red, Velo did not. Just walk us through the profile of the red, how freaking cool it is, because it's phenomenal. I have 3 of them in my bag currently. I just got a text from an LPGA player who just built one up today.
Let me guess,
So
Annabella.
walk us through the yeah, that's my girl. Walk us through
Yeah.
the need for that shaft, because again, it didn't exist before. Now it exists. So something had to happen that they were like, hey, got to get this out
Yeah.
there. But B, like that profile is just, it's so
You
sick.
gotta give the people what they want, and they wanted a red hybrid. I can't tell you how many dealers of ours would call us and be like, "Dude, why haven't you guys made a red hybrid yet?" And for us, it just didn't fill a need. We had the blue, which we thought had some feel to it and was soft, and the OG, and then we had the black. We thought we could basically do with those two profiles, and that was the one thing. When we sat back and we kind of reassessed it, we're like, why wouldn't we have something that created more dynamic loft that would get up in the air for guys to be able to hit and hold a green? Because that's what you want out of a hybrid, right? Especially if I'm hitting it out of the rough too. I'm gonna want something that spins it a little bit more and maybe launches a little
So
bit higher because it's already knocking the spin off of it. So to me, there was a need. To Andrew, there was, and Pat on tour, there was a need. And it's not only can be used in obviously utility irons, but also in hybrids too. It's been awesome, having something that is a little bit stiffer in the handle, but still has some flexibility from mid to the tip. I think is always a great profile, and in terms of a Ventus Red Hybrid, and having it 80-90 grams has been great. I think it just fit a hole that we had in our lineup, and the dealers wanted it, the tour wanted it, and by golly, we finally gave it to them, and
uh,
it's been great.
I mean, I think you guys fit a hole. I wouldn't even call it a hole within your lineup. I think you guys fit a hole that existed, full stop, period. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, for somebody who needs an extra stiff part specifically. I don't know what else I would grab to compete
Yeah.
with that shaft with a 9X Ventus Red Hybrid. I don't know what I would grab to do that. So I can imagine that everybody was like, "Hey, could you make this for us?" And then as soon as it got made, just boom, rocket off.
Yeah,
It's just so good.
it tested extremely well when we brought people in, and again, it's just that softer feel in the tip section, but the firmness in the handle to where it didn't feel mushy, it didn't feel soft, it felt lively, and you
Yeah.
still controlled the face. It didn't go left, which is a big proponent with hybrids. A lot of people don't like to see it going left, so I just check marked all the boxes, and we've actually had a decent amount of tour players, put them in bags and try them and like them. Blue has been taking off. Black has been doing extremely well. I would say these hybrids are probably the best we've created in a long time, and it's just getting a little bit better, a little bit more thoughtful in the way that we're doing things, understanding the profiles that we need, understanding the torques that we need, um, and then obviously with the addition of VeloCore Plus. I mean, we've only added to what we've had before and made it better, and testing showed that in terms of speed. It's all around. The hybrids have been phenomenal. I'm happy to have them.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at you
It's
two.
funny though. You create a great hybrid, and then everybody's putting in some fairway woods. So
Yeah.
I know everyone's putting in 9 woods.
I know, I
I
know.
can honestly say, Jake, it's great having you here, because I tell you what, some of the dorky shit we were getting, like this is just an incredible rabbit hole that we're on here. Marsh,
Well, it's all
as
still with
always,
Marshall. It's so easy, you know.
my friend, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
We're going to bring Marsh back on. We're going to bring, he's a friend of the pod. He's a friend of the family. So we'll bring him on again. But thank you for everything that you do for us, Marshall. And Jake Morrow, welcome to the squad. Welcome to the big show, bud. And that
Thank
is
you.
Fully Equipped episode 297. I heard something that if you get past 10 episodes of a podcast, it'll be your chances of success go up like 9,000%. So we're climbing on 1 million per episode here. We just got, got some work to do. Anyway, if you guys have any questions, you can go to @Johnny_Wunder on IG, or @Made for the Range, or @Fully Equipped, or @Fujikura Golf. If you have any questions on Fujikura Golf products. But that is Marshall. That is Jake. I'm Johnny. We are out of here from Chicago. Thanks, Marsh.
See you,
boys.
Marshall.
Thank you for having me. Be good.